Kelly with Potomac Beads. Join me in creating these Cabos earrings featuring our cushion beads in 2 different sizes and a very simple netted bezel. You can do this with many different styles of crystals, just modifying the counts. If you do need any supplies, make sure to check below to shop with us online in the description of the video to get links there. Gather up all your materials and let's get started. So to create this Cabos earring, we're going to be using cushion beads. This is the Color Shift Pandora in a 12mm. And then we also have another Color Shift which give those kind of iridescent look in the Color Shift Sphinx. So kind of pink and blue and has a little bit of that pink and green color in it. We're using some really simple materials, 15 seed beads, delica beads, as well as my favorite to bezel with 2-hold bars. These are the 2-hold bars in the silver or crystal lab full. The 15-0 is going to be the matte opaque cobalt luster. And then for our delica, we're using the Duracoat galvanized champagne. You want 2 ear wires as well as 2 of your wire guards, whether or not you're using silver or gold. Doesn't really matter since we're using both colors. So whatever you have on hand is plenty fine to use. You're going to want a size 12 needle for this, and we're going to be using white thread. You can use white, you can use green. Those 2 colors are going to work really well with the design, so either will work. Go ahead and get about 4 feet of thread on your needle. Get 1 stop bead, which is going to be a bead that is not included on your project, and go ahead and put that on the end of your thread. We'll get ready to start creating. If you don't want the stop bead, you can also get ready to tie a knot. So to begin, we are going to begin with our interior of our larger cushion bead. We are going to create some prongs with our 2-hold bars here, and we are going to be using 2 2-hold bars that are separated by 1 of our 15-0s, followed by 6 delica beads. We're repeating that 4 times to get the 4 corners of our piece. I'm holding the end of my thread, and I'm going to tie this in a knot. Again, if you want to do a stop bead, you can do that as well. This knot I'm going to tie and make sure that it is nice and secure. And I'm tying it right next to one of the 2-hold bars because that will conceal it pretty well. Once you have your knot tied, go ahead and give a tight pull. I'm going to give 1 more knot. And then we're going to step up to the next row of our beading. Prior to doing so, I'm going to sew through that 2-hold bar, through the 15, and through the next 2-hold bar. So I'm trying to get away from the knot. It's always a great idea when you tie a knot in a project to get away from that knot. It pulls it in towards the interior of the project, makes it disappear, and then we're going to step up from the first hole of that 2-hold bar to the second hole. You'll see a tiny bit of thread on the end, but really by the time you get this made, you will not see it. From here, we are going to begin adding a total of 5 of our delica beads. We're going to add 5 at a time, 6 total, 5 at a time to make this little picot trim and then an extra one. This is going to be between our prongs. So you're going to pick up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to start. Let that fall down next to your 2-hold bar. Pick up your thread and needle and sew back through in a circular motion bead number 2. So I'm sewing from bead number 1 toward bead number 2, needle coming out near bead number 3. That's going to help to get you this little right angle weave section. See that little group of 4? And push that down next to the project. Add 1 more delica bead and sew through the next of your 2-hold bar. Once you sew through the next of the 2-hold bar, you're going to repeat this. However, between our prongs, when we repeat this, we're going to add a total of 7 delicas. So we did add 6 previously, now we're going to add 7. Once you have your 4 corners on there, we did those intentionally in order to grab onto that top delica bead. That's going to be used to pull back and create that nice netting that's going to hold our bezel in. To finish this up, I have my last of my 7 beads on. I'm going to go into my first of those 2-hold bars that the thread was originally coming out of, that we did that little nice almost right angle weave look. And then I'm going to step up. To step up to that corner, we are going to go through the first 2 beads on that grouping of 6, circle around through bead number 3, and come out bead number 4. And that's going to progress us to the top of that little piece. Again, our prongs are going to sit on our cushion here, and now we're bending back the extra seed beads in order to hold back the piece. What we're going to do is we are going to use a total of our 7 beads, just like we did on the exterior, to come in and grab along the back of the piece. So coming out through that prong here, I'm going to grab 7 beads, and then I'm going to go to the next corner bead, to that next delica. And that little picot trim, it's the cornermost bead. Once you have your 7 beads on, sew over to the next corner. Now you'll notice I'm not pulling this very tight because I want to get my my cushion bead in there prior to pulling this tight. So I'm doing all of my 4 sides here, adding my 7 beads in, and then to finish it up I'm going to pull tight. Back into the first bead, the whole way through those first 7 beads, and out the second corner. Once you're out that second corner, grab your cushion bead and pull those beads up to the back. It fits perfectly in there. From here, I'm going to reinforce this back, going through all of the groups of 7 beads. So I'm going to skip over the corners. This is going to pull it just a little bit tighter along the back, round it out a tiny bit. So I'm going to skip that corner bead and go right into just my groups of 7. So pull that back just a tiny bit more and tighten that up. Anytime you have a bezel that you create, both the front and the back, I like to reinforce that last line of seed beads, because that last line is what's going to have the most tension, and that important reinforcement is going to make sure that you don't lose your stone. All right, once you have it the whole way around, continuing back past the first beads so that way you have the full path, we're going to bring our thread and needle toward the front of the design. To bring it towards the front of the design, like we did with the back, we're going to go through bead number 3 of that little squared right angle weave section. Then we're going to go down bead number 4, back down bead number 3, and then down through bead number 6 and out through the 2-hold bar. We're going to tighten this up just a little bit more, adding in some 15-0 seed beads and another little corner picot trim. Okay, so coming out here, we're going to trap in these sides a tiny bit and square this off. To do so, we have 7 beads on the top and 6 beads on the bottom. You're going to go through at the top 4 beads and come on out. Once you're through those 4 beads, grab one of your 15-0s, go to the front line, and you're going to sew through beads number 4 and number 3 in that order. So you're going from bead number 4 and through bead number 3. We're circling around. Pick up another 15-0 and go back through bead number 4 and continue on to your next corner through beads number 5, 6, and 7, as well as through your 2-hold bar. Give a nice tight pull, and that lines those up perfectly. From here, we're going to repeat that little corner section that we did to bend back and create our netting, except this time we're going to do one of our 15-0s followed by 4 delicas. So back through delica number 1 from bead number 1 toward bead number 2. Make sure you don't have a lot of thread showing and push that down into the corner. Add one more 15 and then back through the 2-hold bar, over through the delicas, and out bead number 4. This is going to repeat on every corner, and then every side, grab a 15 coming out of bead number 4, go down to the first line of 6 beads, sew through bead number 4 and number 3, add in your 15, back through bead 4, and continue on. So you're going to do this to every single side. We have 2 done, and you're going to do this to every single corner. It's important to learn this technique because we're going to be repeating it with just different counts for the beads as we go in and we do the smaller cushion. This would look great. Make sure to comment below what colors you are going to do, and then post pictures in our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making. Can't wait to see kind of the color combos that are used in this. And as we're going around here, again, we're going to be doing the same technique at the top, but just a different count of beads. So as you practice, you're getting the exact same effect. Go ahead and continue around, connecting in your last 2 sides and creating your last 4 little points. When you're finishing up your final corner here, you're going to go through that line of 7 beads at the top, through the bar, through the 7 beads, and we're going to come out through that first one of our little right angle weave top. This right angle weave top is also very intentional because we are going to use this to connect to our smaller cushion. So we're going through here. I'm going to come out again through bead number 1, through bead number 2, through bead number 3, and hang out. If you do not want to do a smaller cushion and you just want that bigger look, here you are ready to put on your wire guard coming right off the top and ready to include your ear wire. If you would like to continue on and do the smaller cushion, or you could have started with the smaller cushion, we'll go ahead and get started with that. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to use that little picot trim to do our connection point here. We're going to run around and do our little connection here of our 2 hold bars, and then we're going to start right away again. I'm going to add 1 15-0 followed by 1 of my 2 hold bars. From here, we're going to step up from the bottom hole to the top hole of that 2 hold bar. So it's just going to kind of look a little odd and turn to the side there. From here, you want to add your 1 15-0 seed bead, 1 more bar, let that drop down, and we're going to go through the second hole of the bar. It's going to look almost like a herringbone stitch. Add 1 more 15 and go through that center bead again. See how we've done that little connection there, which is going to sit on the top of our 2 hold bar there. We're going to get to the center and we're going to start over. To get to the center, just like we've been doing, we're going to go through that first 15-0 that we put on, through the 2 hold bar, and then step up through the 2 hold bar, the 15, the 2 hold bar, so we're coming out through that top hole. We're going to have a chance to reinforce that connection as well, so don't worry about that. Now we're going to continue like we did at the beginning. So we're going to add 2 of our delicas this time, and then the series of our 2 hold bar, 15-0, 2 hold bar, and then once again 2 delicas. We already have our first set of 2 there. Here's my second, so I need 2 more sets to finish up and connect back through. Adding in my 2 hold bar, then a 15, 2 hold bar, 2 delicas, 2 hold bar, 15, 2 hold bar, then 2 more delicas to finish it out. To connect those all together, we're going to go back to that first 2 hold bar and once again sew through. So that's going to get our interior row. From here, I want you to sew through the first 2 delicas, the first set there of our 2 hold bar with our 15-0 in the middle, and then just like we did on the bottom, we're going to step up to connect the second hole of our 2 hold bars. To connect the second hole of our 2 hold bars, in between them, below the 15-0, we're going to use 3 beads. On the corners, just like we've been doing, we're going to add our 6 delicas. So here's 3 delicas to start, going through that delica bead there. Oops, sorry, we're on one of our sets of 6. So we're going to go back out through that 2-hole bar. Add 2 more beads. So back through bead number 2 toward bead number 3. Pull that down towards the design. Add 1 more delica through that 2-hole bar. Now the groups of 3, so those little picot trims will sit on top of the prongs. And then between here, where there's 2, you're going to do 3 delicas. Sew through the next 2-hole bar. This time when you're at the bottom, I want to sew through the 2-hole bar and toward the back of those beads that are already there, because that's our second round of our connection. If this confuses you, you can always do 2 beads separate and then add them together. Get a couple more of our champagne delicas out here. Around the back here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So back through bead number 2 toward 3. Do our little picot trim. So again, we're keeping this to the back of the connection point. Adding our delica bead and then in through the next of our 2-hole bar. And there you go, that gets our prong in. So I'm going to continue building in my sides here. 3 delicas on top of the 2, and then my little corners in between my prongs. We're going to get ready then to fold those little prongs back that we've created, that right angle weave, and catch in our cushion bead with a group there of 4 seed beads. Just like we've done previously then, I'm sewing through my next little top section there of my right angle weave, going through bead number 1 of that, bead number 2, and coming out through bead number 3, which is actually bead number 4 that I added. So coming out at that peak. And then once again, just like we did in the previous sections, we're going to connect the corners of all of those beads. You can also see that this makes a really little pretty open design as well. Just like we did previously, I'm not going to add the cushion in until I have my groups of 4 established the whole way around. And then I'm going to pull tightly and lock that cushion in. If you'll notice the cushions on the back of our finished sample piece here, they are sitting to the side. So make sure you realize that as you're going around, adding your 4 beads and sewing into this corner. Once you have all 4 sides done, we are going to give a nice tight pull, and then once again work our way toward the front after completing this. So back through then that first bead here that our thread was coming out of, just like we did the front side, through the next 4 beads, through the next corner, and out. Prior to pulling this in tight, add your cushion bead. And if you have a different size cushion bead, you can always modify to different sizes. And now we're going to sew back through all of our groups of 4 seed beads. So again, skipping the corners, just sewing through our groups of 4. Once we sew through the 4, we're going to go and create our little picot trims or our little right angle weave groups along the front, as well as connect our sides together. This time when we connect the sides together, we're going to be going from our 3 group down to our 2 group. I'm going to work my way toward the front now, going down through one of those little right angle weave sides, down through the 4th bead in that right angle weave, down through the 1st, and over, so I'm coming out the 2-hole bar. Tighten that up. You can see how pretty that sits. If you don't want to square it off by connecting the sides, you don't have to, but what we're going to be doing is coming out of bead number 1. So we're going to come out bead number 1 of that group of 3. And as we come out bead number 1 of that group of 3, we're going to add our 1 15-0 seed bead. So through the 2 delicas that sit below, add another 15 and sew through bead number 3. Then go over toward your 2-hold bar. Do your 15, your 4 set of seed beads. So back through the first delica towards the second to create that trim. Push that down into the corner. Add your 15, and this is also where we're going to connect our ear wire to, and go through the next one of our 2-hold bar. And while you're there, you might as well go through the first delica. Add your 15 through the 2 beads that sit in the front, 15 through the 3rd bead, and through the 2-hold bar. When we get down to the bottom, I have one more little picot trim to do, one connection, and then you'll notice that this one is already done because it's where our connection is. Go ahead and reinforce it though, and take your thread line back through and trace around those beads that you've already established in the connection, and then bring our thread and needle, finishing it up back to the top. Once you are finished with the rest of your trim, you're going to want to come out the top of your right angle weave little added look there. Add a 15 and then your wire guard. We're going to go up through the one side of your wire guard. If you don't have wire guards on hand, you can just make a seed bead loop or use an 8/0 seed bead. Go down through the other side of the wire guard, add another one of your 15s, and then sew into that same delica from the opposite side, which is going to make sure that the wire guard sits directly on top of the project. Go ahead and reinforce this, bringing your thread and needle back down the design through that delica. I've done that twice. You can do it up to 3 times. Go down through the delicas along the side here. And then what I'm going to do is sew through the design, bringing my thread and needle toward the back and tie off the end. So I'm just going to take my thread needle toward the back here, wiggle it through if you need to, through those delicas, up through the side here. We'll reinforce the back one more time, going through just those 4 seed beads. I'll then tie off my thread as I continue. Once you have your thread tied off, you're just going to take your thread burner, burn down the thread edges, that first knot thread, as well as this back thread here, going through. And then here as I'm down further along the design, once again, I'll take my thread and knot it along the project. Here's my thread. I'm going to tuck underneath the bridge thread that connects the 2 beads, create a loop, sew through that loop once, sew through that loop twice for a nice sewer's knot. Give a nice tight pull to get that knot nice and tight in there, and then sew through the next set of beads before burning the thread off. You can knot one more section if you want to. I just tend to use the thread, especially if I have a short tail, until it's almost gone. Pulling it out then, grabbing my thread burner, burning my thread, opening up my ear wire, turning it to the side, and connecting to finish up my Cabos earrings. Thanks so much for joining me in the creation of these Cabos earrings. Remember, if you do need any supplies, go ahead and check out the links in the description below the video to shop with us online. Remember, you can do this as a necklace, as a pendant, as earrings, and you have all those connection points to make it happen however you want to do the set. Remember, you can also just use 1 or 2 or separate the earrings as you're creating them. If you do make any design modifications, make sure to give your feedback in the comments below. That way it helps out this beading community and sparks creativity and gives ideas. As always, again, give a little thumbs up, and if you haven't yet, subscribe so you don't miss anything from us here at Potomac Beads. Thanks so much for joining me in the creation of these Cabos earrings, and I can't wait to see your own designs in our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making. Happy beading and enjoy your new Cabos earrings.